Welcome back. As Lebanon is approaching its presidential elections, hopeful candidates are trying their best to ensure a two-thirds majority in the parliament, while influential regional players such as Iran and Saudi Arabia are so far unable to agree on a presidential candidate. Let's see what the media is saying. Aziz writes in Al Monitor on the forthcoming elections. He says it is clear that the presidential deal, as they call it in Lebanon, is dependent on external cues that are either not yet clear or have not yet reached Beirut. Aziz says it is clear that foreign parties essentially means a Saudi-Iranian agreement on holding an inaugural electoral session and presenting a presidential candidate acceptable to both Riyadh and Tehran. Such an agreement will only happen with the consent of foreigners. As a result, attention in Beirut has turned in the past few days to regional developments, and it will remain there in the coming weeks. The candidate must also not be found objectionable by Europe, Russia, and especially the United States. The writer adds developments in recent days have not been encouraging. A negative indicator involved March 21 statements on the Holocaust by Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The Lebanese also consider it a negative sign that a US court agreed on the confiscation of an Iranian-owned building in New York. The piece concludes any progress in Western Iranian relations would necessarily contribute to progress in the effort to resolve the Syrian war, but that may not comport with the interests of some of the regional and international powers involved in the area. The ongoing process of self-destruction in Syria, Iran's involvement in the war, and the losses suffered by Hezbollah there may be the ideal situation for some regional parties and beyond. Aziz ends his piece by saying despite progress in the P5+1 Iran nuclear talks, the United States has been unable so far to mediate between Tehran and Riyadh, and Moscow is saddled with problems involving Ukraine. Thus, the allies of Iran and Saudi Arabia in Beirut do not yet have permission to hold a parliamentary session to elect a new president before May the 25th, when the mandate of the current president expires. It appears that absent sudden developments in the coming days, there will be a presidential vacuum in Lebanon. Michael Young writes in the Lebanese Daily Star on Samir Geagea, head of the Lebanese Forces political party and previous warlord. Geagea has declared his candidacy for the Lebanese presidential election, launching 1,000 speculations, pushing his allies into a corner, forcing them to support him. He feels that even though he may not win, the prospect of a Geagea victory remains far more credible than one by Michel Aoun. But how true is that? The writer says Geagea's calculation is roughly as follows. He reckons that March 14 and independent support, he would have well over 50 votes in his favor. With the backing of Druze leader Walid Jumblat's bloc, the Lebanese Forces leader would be able to garner the 65 votes needed to win an election in a second round of voting. There are two problems with this assessment. Geagea's estimation of the votes he already has seems quite optimistic, and Walid Jumblat's backing is in no way guaranteed. On the contrary, one principle on which Geagea seems to be basing his calculations is that Aoun cannot win a majority because his allies actually do not want him to win. That may be true, but Aoun appears to have taken it into consideration. 2 weeks ago, in an interview with Al Mayadeen, General Aoun announced that he would not stand against Geagea, since, as he put it, "I am in competition with nobody." Michael Young views that Aoun's statement seems both ridiculous and arrogant. Ridiculous since what is an election but a competition, and arrogant because Aoun appeared to signal he would only stand if he alone was the candidate, presumably of national consent. What are Aoun's options? If he is not a candidate and sees momentum shifting towards Geagea, he may boycott the election session and prevent a quorum. We would then have a situation where Aoun could exploit to present himself as the only person capable of breaking the ensuing deadlock. The irony is that Geagea's candidacy may benefit Aoun by turning the election into a choice between the Lebanese Forces leader and Aoun. Geagea may force those on the fence to take sides, and there are no assurances Geagea will win. As Jumblat's case illustrates, Geagea believes that several independents will vote for him, but it is also true that those who prefer a compromise could vote against him if offered no choice. And now we are joined by London-based political commentator and member of the Lebanese Forces Party, Joseph Barakat. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Michael Young says in the Daily Star, one principle on which Dr. Geagea seems to be basing his calculations on is that General Aoun cannot win a majority because his allies actually do not want him to win. Do you agree with this statement and that they don't really want him to win?
I think the truth is that's his own opinion, which he is entitled to. But what I think is when Dr. Geagea put his name down as a candidate to be the next president of Lebanon, he was never looking at what General Aoun might do.
Yes.
He's standing firmly for what he believes that is to be the right thing to do.
Yes.
Especially the government institutions and the country's institutions were weakened by other powers, and people were left with no hope. So it's well needed that Lebanon should have a very strong candidate to be a president, and someone with a history of achievement and with straightforward principles. As we all know, that Dr. Samir Geagea was jailed unlawfully about 11 years.
Yes.
Just because of his political beliefs, nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so it's the right thing to do is to put his name to be the next president of Lebanon, and without looking into who's going to be on the opposite side or who the other candidates are going to be. I mean, he's doing what he thinks that is right to be done, and that's full stop.
And are the people like yourself, supporters from the Lebanese Forces Party, do they believe that he earns the presidency more than others because he was in jails, particularly, for example, compared to Nelson Mandela, for example?
You mean, to be honest, in many ways, he is like Nelson Mandela and the other political leaders that accepted unfair punishment for what they believed in.
Yes.
And we think that it's going to be the law is there for a fair competition. So whoever deserves to become the next president, we hope that he gets to become the next president. That's of course including our own candidates. Yeah.
Yes.
And we do hope that he gets through because we know that he doesn't compromise. And what we are basing all our future is on the hope of building a strong Lebanon which serve all its people, not fraction of its people, fairly and justly.
What is the point of strength, in your opinion, that Dr. Geagea has, so as opposed to General Aoun?
I think it's his beliefs, his ideas, and his principles.
Yes.
I mean, he stands really firmly for what he believes in, and he never changes sides or swaps or twist or turn or anything.
Yes.
If he believes that he wants a strong government and a strong Lebanon and strong institutions, it means he means it.
Yes.
And it means he will accept that this strong Lebanon will be not for just the Lebanese forces, for every Lebanese that lives on the Lebanese territory and based on the fair chances and equal chances.
And do you think, Mr. Barakat, that Dr. Geagea could compromise a little bit when it comes to Hezbollah, for example, and manage to include Hezbollah and sort of have a rapprochement with them?
You see, let's put it that way. Hezbollah, nobody would deny that they are a big fraction of the Lebanese, and they have their own institutions, their own political party. They have the right and the wrong within the party. So, of course, I mean, Hezbollah will be one of the issues and the big issues in the future of Lebanon.
Yes.
But at some stage, somebody will have to stand and say the right thing and do the right thing without having to compromise the integrity and the dignity of the Lebanese people.
Yes.
Somebody will have to put things right and make those offer the chance for all those Lebanese to live together on equal terms.
Thank you very much.
Within Lebanon as the final objective.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Barakat, for your remarkable opinions, which we do respect, of course. Thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome. Thank you for hosting us.
Thanks.
Okay. Cheers.
And for more updates, please visit levant.tv. Thanks for watching. We'll be with you again tomorrow, and bye for now.